Derek Jeter has endured a lot of hate in recent memory, whether it's the historically bad defensive metrics or the argument that he'd be irrelevant on another team. Jeter has continually found himself on lists containing the most overrated players of all time. But is the hate warranted? We're going to look into answering that question today. Coming from an Orioles fan, this video in no way, shape, or form is biased. In fact, I grew up not liking the Yankees, mainly because of the rivalry and how year in and year out they made the playoffs. But over the years, I've grown to appreciate the rich history, especially in regards to the former Yankees captain, Derek Jeter. The ironic thing about the argument regarding Jeter's overrated defense is the fact that some of his most iconic plays and moments come from times where he was fielding at shortstop. The iconic flip in the 2001 ALDS against the Oakland Athletics was, according to Jeter, something that the team worked on in spring training. And while the flip was improvised, he was aware of the situation they were in, and he knew where he needed to be in case the ball was put into play. Now, in terms of baseball IQ, he's got that nailed down. But oftentimes, those who jump on the Jeter is overrated bandwagon often cite the career negative 162 DRS, or defensive runs saved, he accumulated for his career, which is the worst number of all time. Is it a bad number relative to those who played his position in the game today? Absolutely. But before we make any sort of judgment on the poor DRS rating, we should probably know what DRS entails. According to MLB.com, DRS quantifies a player's entire defensive performance by attempting to measure how many runs a defender saved. It takes into account errors, range, outfield arm, and double playability. It differs only slightly from UZR, Ultimate Zone Rating, in its formula, but the concept is the same. The so-called formula is created using Baseball Info Solutions, or BIS for short, which was created by analytics pioneers Bill James and John Dewan. In terms of how they measure it, for example, let's say that a particular fly ball is caught by center fielders 60% of the time. The center fielder is awarded 0.4 bonus points because of how difficult the play was, but if he can't make the play, he loses 0.6 points. The point system created by BIS is then totaled and is adjusted to the league average, and then adjusted again to how many runs the once adjusted score is worth. Whoa. That was a lot of information, and it didn't really tell us how they truly measure it. Sabermetrics takes into account a lot of different formulas, and MLB merely shares the tip of the iceberg when attempting to explain it to fans. Now, I'm not sure I'll be able to justify Jeter's 5 Gold Glove awards for his career, but we need to keep in mind that DRS is not the end-all be-all stat that should be taken as gospel. Before we delve into that rabbit hole, let's talk about how great Jeter was. Derek Jeter played 20 years in the big leagues, all with the New York Yankees, for whom he won 5 World Series with. In a postseason record 158 games, Jeter hit .308 with an .838 OPS, 200 hits, hitting 20 home runs, and stealing 18 bases. That's basically an entire season's worth of action. And it's very impressive, especially considering that those numbers are on par with his career averages in the regular season. The only difference is he did it with higher stakes, the pressure of playing in New York, and playing the best teams in each season battling for a World Series championship. Now, the thing that diminishes these accomplishments, according to some, is the fact that if he hadn't played in New York, he would not have been afforded the luxury of playing on the biggest stage each year. From earning more press, to accumulating nearly a full season's worth of games for his career in the postseason. There are definitely arguments to be made that he was overrated because of how much media attention he got. But is the hate justified? It depends on how you look at it. Jeter's career 115 OPS plus would be dwarfed by current shortstops such as Fernando Tatis Jr., but that's only in a few seasons. Jeter's career OPS plus is also lower than the career 117 OPS plus that Xander Bogaerts has, and the 122 OPS plus that Trea Turner has. On the flip side, you could argue that Derek Jeter's prime is nothing short of fantastic. From 1998 to 2007, a decade's worth of action, Jeter racked up an average of 197 hits a year, 23 stolen bases, a .321 average, .865 OPS, and a .126 OPS plus. He collected a pair of Silver Sluggers in this span and finished in the top 10 in MVP voting 6 times.
Wow.
His worst offensive season of that decade was still 11% better than league average. He played 145 games or more in 16 of the 20 seasons he played in the major leagues, and that's including his first cup of coffee in the big leagues, where he got into just 15 games in 1995. For his career, he tallied 7 seasons in which he reached the 200 hit threshold. That's tied for 4th all time, only behind Ichiro, Pete Rose, and Ty Cobb. That's some good company to be with. And I don't see anyone saying that either of those 3 players were overrated. Jeter ranks 10th all-time in runs scored, and in terms of total hits for a career, Jeter compiled 3,465, which is 6th all-time, and first among shortstops. The term clutch is often used to describe players who deliver in the biggest of moments. Typically, they're perceived to have more pressure attached, and Derek Jeter is widely considered to be one of the most clutch players in the history of the game. However, there isn't a perfect way to measure that. Fangraphs has a clutch rating, and it is calculated using win probability added and leverage index. The higher the score, the better. A 2 is rated as excellent all the way to a -2, which is awful. Most players fall in the +1 to -1 range. Derek Jeter, according to Fangraphs, has a career 1.31 clutch score. That would definitely support the claim that Jeter was fantastic in clutch moments. A valuable part of Derek Jeter's legacy stems from his leadership and presence to the Yankees for the 20 years he was in New York. There are countless stories from players Jeter played with, from managers, coaches, you name it, and if we included them all, this video would be longer than Robert Pattinson's The Batman, which was a long movie, let me tell you. Paul O'Neill raved about how calm and collected Jeter was. According to O'Neill, the amazing thing about Derek was that he was never nervous. He then goes on to share how a lot of guys can fake having things under control, especially in the playoffs, but nothing got to him, and his actions were genuine. Buck Showalter caught the beginnings of Jeter's career in New York, in the minor leagues, and during stretches in 1995. Here's what he had to say about Jeter. There was such a deep respect in our dugout for Derek. To me, it was fitting that he ended it on not a home run or flashy defensive play, but punching a one-out hit to the opposite field. That was him. That was Derek. The respect Showalter has for Jeter speaks volumes. Derek Jeter, when he first became an owner of the Miami Marlins, was heavily criticized. And then manager Don Mattingly went on to say this about Jeter's demeanor. Derek has been criticized by some people, but he never let that stuff bother him in the past. He knows what he wants to do and hasn't wavered. That's pure Derek, totally focused. That's why we're going to be a good team and why it's happening quickly. It's because of Derek. If a 5-time All-Star and an MVP winner thinks this highly of you, then I think you're doing something right. And this is the tip of the iceberg. Derek Jeter throughout his career was always leading by example, and being the genuine, motivating, and humble person that became an integral part of his legacy. Like we mentioned earlier, arguably Derek Jeter's most iconic moment was a defensive highlight, and there's several others where that came from. From the catch he made while diving in the stands, to the catch he made off of the catwalk in Tampa Bay, to the trademark jump throw that I remember even myself imitating. Alright, now I might be violating the Orioles code of conduct, but don't worry, I'll just escort myself out of here before I get kicked out of the Orioles fan club. Alright, so back to DRS. While I don't necessarily believe we should discount the stat entirely, I just think we need to understand that it compares apples to oranges in terms of the value of outfielders compared to infielders. In no way can you say a right fielder is more valuable than a first baseman. It's comparing two different positions with different roles. Besides that flaw, I think there's definitely some value to it. Derek Jeter in his career, according to Fangraphs, only has one season where he posted a positive DRS, with 3 in 2009. Another thing that hurts his defensive resume is that they didn't track DRS until 2002, so that's 7 seasons where he doesn't have a recorded DRS. The Yankees had Alex Rodriguez from 2004 until he retired in 2016, and in that time, he was their third baseman. Looking at the defensive metrics, A-Rod definitely had a way better track record at shortstop than Jeter, but the PR nightmare that would have been caused by moving Jeter away from the position that he cemented himself in wasn't worth it, in their eyes. Along with that, the defensive metrics we know now weren't dependent on as much as when Jeter played. Alright, so what's the verdict? In my book, Jeter does not deserve the hate at all. His offensive prowess speaks for itself. His ability to come up big in clutch moments, along with leading the Yankees as their captain to 5 World Series wins, is impressive. The hate that surrounds Derek Jeter's legacy stems mainly from the spotlight and attention he received from playing in New York, and all of the postseason success from playing on a big market team. Along with that, the Yankees tend to be one of the most hated teams, so people want to find reasons to not only hate the team, but the players that play for that team. The defensive metrics and gold gloves were undeserved, I'll give them that, but Derek Jeter was one of the most consistent players to ever play the game. He was an incredible leader and was a role model for his teammates and young kids who have dreams of playing in the big leagues. One such kid grew up to be Mike Trout, one of the greatest to ever play the game of baseball. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on today's video. Remember, this video isn't trying to justify Jeter's defensive status, it's merely trying to show that while he might be overrated in some aspects, he certainly should not be hated on to the extent that he has endured and will continue to endure as long as this Jeter hate bandwagon continues. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.